to a series that started off as just a meme that quickly blew up on the internet, and honestly, for about a few weeks, it was something that you would just see everywhere. Everybody saw this swordsman pulling his katana out and hearing something like, it's Kagurabachi time, or, I start every morning with fresh hatred, all these different type of things. It was a series that was just being memed to death for a few weeks, and even before the first chapter officially came out, there was just so many memes already created, so many TikTok videos, videos on YouTube, Twitter, everywhere just talking about this series. And I think even if you have never read this manga before, you have probably seen this image at least at the end of last year, because it was something that just blew up very quickly. But ever since then, obviously, the overall, conversation or the memes around this series has dwindled to a degree. And so, after a few months now, since obviously the first chapter came out, and we're like 17, 18 chapters into Kagurabachi, how is it doing? Is it doing good? Is it doing bad? That is something I want to talk about, because as we all know, when it comes to Weekly Shonen Jump manga, most new manga in Shonen Jump just straight up get the axe. They get completely canceled before they really get themselves off the ground, and it's just very disappointing. And it was one of the big reasons why, I read the first few chapters of Kagurabachi, the first 3, and then I sat it aside, and I was like, I want to let this series cook. I want to see if it is able to be successful or not, and if it is, I want to sit down and I'm going to read it. And today, I'm going to bring you some good news. Kagurabachi, I think, is going to survive the cancellation acts. Now, it could still get canceled later down the road if something happens, but at least in the early stages, it's very clear Japan likes the manga. And as I've talked about in these videos in the past, what really matters for manga in Japan that come out in Weekly Shonen Jump is the Japanese fans. It does not matter how many people love it in the West, how many memes are created for it, it does not matter. All that really matters is if the Japanese audience likes it or not. And it's very clear, thanks to the sales that the series is receiving, that it is definitely successful. And let's talk about that. So, this came out yesterday, and actually a few days ago, 2 days now, technically it's the 5th, but this came out, 2 days ago, to where we got our first look at the volume sales of Kagurabachi, and where it stands for its first day. And this number here associated with it basically says where it's positioned in terms of volume sales on the first day, in competition with everything else that came out on that day. Basically, Kagurabachi is top 5 best-selling, at least for its first day for its sales. And automatically, when it is outpacing something like Undead Unluck and reaching or encroaching upon Black Clover like it's in the top 5, that's incredible. It is legitimately incredible to see a first volume sell that well. And to put this in perspective, before we kind of got the data all in one place, this is basically a chart of series and how they did on their first day debut for their sales. And one series in particular that stands out here is Ruri Dragon. Ruri Dragon here on the 3rd row on the left side, hopefully you guys can see that. I'm going to scroll down a little bit, but it's right here. It was in top 5 as well. It was the 5th selling. And anyone that knows about Ruri Dragon, we know it's probably going to return soon, but Japan absolutely fell in love with the series. And it's obviously the big reason why it was not canceled. And so it's clear that there is an audience for Ruri Dragon, and it is just something that blew everybody's mind. And the fact that Kagurabachi is also in the same level as Ruri Dragon pretty much speaks to me that the series is definitely going to stick around, at least for a little while. Now, it depends on where the story develops, and if, the characters remain interesting and the plot gets really, really good. It depends if it gets canceled later on or not, but at least for the early stages, it has gathered an audience. It has managed to gain an audience in Japan that want to read the series and want to see where it's going to go. And that was one of the hardest hurdles that any mangaka can try to overcome, because the overall pressure to compete with absolute giants in the industry, like just One Piece alone, say whatever you want, you like One Piece or not, One Piece is an absolute giant in Weekly Shonen Jump. And imagine a fresh offer straight out of school or whatever, out of art school or whatever, writing a manga and having to place their chapter, their first series, alongside of a legendary series like One Piece, the amount of pressure that would be on someone's shoulders is outright insane to think about. And so when you factor all these things, you know, getting over that initial hurdle, the pressure to just gaining an audience, trying not to sabotage yourself, and all these different type of things, these external and internal things, you know, getting over that initial hump is very important, and it's clear that Kagurabachi was actually able to do that. Now, let's talk about that. Why is it safe? Well, we got to look at, once again, this data here. So if you see here, anything that's usually below 20th in terms of sales, like on their first day, typically do not get axed. Like, look at this real quick. If you look at, let's say, any of these series here, they're all on their first debut for their volume sales. They basically got very high up, either above 25 up, and that's when they got the actual axe. For instance, Red Hood here, and, you know, I think it kind of pinpoints, you know, yeah, this might not be the most trustworthy. Like, you know, obviously there could be variables, and, you know, maybe there is some examples to where even if it sells very well, it could still get canceled. But if you take a look at this, most of the series that, you know, sold very well for its first volume are still around to this day. Like Blue Box, right here, you know, number 8 at the top here, that's getting an anime, and it's very popular in Weekly Shonen Jump, and its first volume did obviously very well. Not as good as, like, Ruri Dragon, and clearly not as good as Kagurabachi, but Ruri Dragon and Kagurabachi were crazy. They stood out, and Blue Box has been very popular as well, and the fact it sold that well, and, you know, Kagurabachi has done even better technically, it lets us know that, Kagurabachi is going to stay around probably for a good long while. Now, what does this mean? Well, one thing I want to say in particular is what I made yesterday, this post here. It is time to read the series. It is time for me to sit down and read this manga, dedicate some time to it, and potentially even do weekly manga chapter reviews, because, you know, I've been letting the series cook. I've been letting to see where it's going to go, if it was going to last or not, because I did not want to put time and dedication and commitment to something if it was just going to get completely ripped away from me in like a few chapters. I did not want to go through that again. But after the constant cancellations of really good manga over the years, I did not want to have that. And yes, Kagurabachi didn't start off as a meme, and the memes were very powerful, which blew everyone away. It was an absolute insane time period with the amount of memes that came from this story, but I think it's clearly evolved past that. It's no longer just about the memes. It clearly does have a good story to tell that is capturing an audience, and I think that is the most important part. So yeah, I wanted to kind of relay this information to all of you out there that were unaware of Kagurabachi and its current state right now. It's clearly doing well, and that means that, you know, I think that in terms of fear, we don't have to worry too much about it being axed. If it's going to get axed, it's probably going to be axed around volume 4 or 5, if it does. So I would say what's really going to happen now is that it's going to have to initiate a really engaging plot that really grips you for a long period of time, and that's what will probably get the series to stick. Once again, I'm not caught up with the series, so I don't know exactly where the plot is currently, but, you know, for it to sell so well, it's clearly doing something right. But I'll leave it at that. Thank you so much for watching. May all of you have a fantastic day or night wherever you live. If you enjoyed this video, do leave me a like. It does help me a lot, and I would greatly appreciate it. And with that, Chibi out.